Hey everyone! So I wanted to talk about something today that I have a lot of strong feelings about, and it's a problem that I feel like comes up quite a bit for all writers. And that is when you get stuck and you don't know how to proceed in a piece of writing. And a lot of people call that writer's block. So the way to first deal with writer's block, and I am 100% sure when I say this, please know that writer's block does not exist. It's not real. It is an excuse that a lot of writers tend to make whenever they're stuck on something or if you're procrastinating. And I'm not saying this to like dig at people. I'm guilty of this, saying, oh, I just have writer's block, so I haven't been able to write. And it's like, no, I haven't bothered to sit down and actually consider what I want to go on in my narrative or my story. And a lot of times it's going to be that narrative storytelling type of writing that is most likely what people are referring to when they talk about writer's block. But it could really apply to anything that someone is struggling with, whether it's like a thesis or an expository paper, a research paper, a dissertation. The first thing that you should really do is sit down and think about what you're trying to write. The very first thing that I would recommend is thinking about what is your message? What's your theme? What's your goal for this piece of writing? For my novel right now, I have a lot to go still, but I'm really far into it, and I really have to start thinking about what are those goals to really push through and like get through to the end. Because although I do love writing, it's hard to really make everything cohesive. The second thing you should really consider if you think you are struggling with your writing is considering, do you actually know the story? Do you know the story that you're trying to write? This is why pre-writing is really important, and a lot of people skip that first step in the writing process. Do you have notes? Do you have a list of your characters? Do you have a list of their traits? Do you have notes on your own creation? It's unrealistic to believe that you can remember every single thing in your story. It's always good to have notes to fall back on. Do you know the exposition and the rising action and the climax and that falling action? Do you even know how your story is going to be resolved with the resolution or denouement? If you don't, you should probably consider that. Sit down and think about it, and chances are you most likely won't have that writer's block afterwards anyway because you sat and thought about your story. The last tip I have for you, this is the third one, is figuring out if you're telling your story or narrative from the right perspective. This happened to me once. I was writing a story from a male protagonist point of view as he was in conflict with his wife. But the wife was the one dealing with all these conflicts, and I was like a good maybe 5 or 10 pages into this story. Most of my short stories are about 30 pages, and I realized I was telling the story from the wrong perspective. I had to go back, because I can't help this. I have to fix something once my brain is like, actually, the story's going to be like this, and I have to go back, otherwise it's not good to me anymore. So I had to go back, fix everything. I couldn't even like really keep everything because it was from the wrong perspective. So I kept it as notes. I had to rewrite the whole story to be from my female protagonist perspective instead, because that made the better story. Double check before you start so you don't have to do what I did. Are you actually telling the story from the right perspective? If it's using words like I and me and our and us, you should really consider knowing who that protagonist is. Same thing if you're going to go third person and you're using words like she or he, they, them. Whose are you going to focus on more? That is the best thing I can say, and it will save you a lot of time and a lot of heartache. So really, yeah, just sit down, and if you need that practice, reading promotes healthy writing. I would definitely read, but yeah, sit down, think about your story, what are things that you have to consider, and then you handle it, and then you write it, because that's going to be amazing. I know everyone has been kind of struggling lately. Please continue to write. I can't wait to read what you guys are coming up with, and I'll try to do the same. Don't be afraid to learn. Bye, guys.